Hello everyone. I wanted to do this Canva tutorial because I thought this was a really great project to work on where I can show you some various text editing tools and options that you have within Canva. We can work with images and some of the visual elements within Canva. I was planning on creating just a simple holiday card to post to social media and to send out into my newsletter, to send to my followers and my clients. And I thought, why not just create it from scratch so that I can show you some of the various tools within Canva that maybe you either don't know about or you're not using them to their full potential. So normally what I would advise clients and students to do is, I'm just going to head back to Canva's home screen. And normally what I would do is, if you're going to create, let's say, a holiday card, Canva has hundreds, maybe thousands, I don't know, of pre-designed templates that you can pull from easily to work on your design. Normally, I would just tell my clients and students, just find a template that works for your business and then customize from there. That way it's going to save you some time and you already have a well-designed project or card that you're going to be creating and you don't have to think too hard about it. But the reason that we're going to be starting and recreating one from scratch is so that you can see the various tools that are available to us and how we would put something like this together. So this is the very simple holiday card that we're going to be recreating. I'm going to personalize it a little bit more for not too much. I have an image that I may or may not use, and I'll add my name in here. Because this is a branded holiday card for your clients, you may want to use like some headshots, a headshot photo that you have. You may want to use a personal family photo. You may want to bring in your logo. The idea here is that it's going to be branded so that it's going to, look like it is something that has come from you and your business. It has your personality, your energy infused into the design. So before we get started, what we're going to be doing is we're going to recreate this. What I create is not going to be identical because I'm going to bring in a different image and we'll just kind of play with that and see where that goes. But if you were to look at this actually has an animation. So what we're going to create is I created it this way so that we could have a look at some of the text editing tools, but also some more advanced features like curves and adding in curves to your text. And then also animations and playing with different styles of fonts. So if I were to click play on here, you can see that it's got an animation. It's got this typewriter effect for the text. So we're going to do something like this for your clients. You'll have access to this template if you want to use a template I create. If you want to follow along and just follow the steps just so you're becoming familiar, then that will hopefully be helpful for you. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to duplicate this page because we're going to start from a blank page. And actually, if I duplicate this page, it's going to give me the same page and I have to delete all of the elements that are on the page. So let's not do that. Let's actually add a new page and then it'll bring in a blank page. Because I have a colored background, that's why you see a color. I can simply click on the background, click delete on my keyboard, and then it deletes it. Now, if I want this page to be at the top, I can simply use the arrow key to move it up, or I can click down here in the bottom right of my I'm using the Canva app, but would be the same on a browser. And I can click on grid view. And now I see my designs in grid view. What I can do is I can then manually use my mouse to move things about where they need to go. And if this was design, you would see my design move over. I need this one in the front. So I'm going to bring this one back. And I'll go back to the regular view that we're all familiar with. So we're going to start from this design and I'm going to show you how I came about creating this design from scratch. So now we have a blank page. And the first thing that I see here is this arched sort of image frame. And we can simply bring these in. If you want to have, if you have an image and you want it to be in a circle or in the shape of a square or various frames, you can do that. Canva has tons of options available for you. And to get to your frame options, you're going to click in the left-hand menu, you're going to click on elements. And when I do that, it's going to bring up all of my options. And as you can see there, I had my menu hidden. So if I were to click that arrow, it hides everything. And then I have more space to work with in this canvas area. If I ever want the menu to come back, I just need to simply click on anything in the left-hand menu and it's going to bring my menu back. So now that I'm in Elements, as you can see, I can scroll through and I can scroll down and I'll find these image frames to work from, or I can use the search bar and I can just type in arch frame, and then it's going to bring me to what options are available in Canva. So there's some here that are graphics, there's some that are photos and videos. I want the one that is an image, and I know this is an image just because it has this blue sky with the cloud and the green grass. That lets me know it's an image frame. So if I were to click on see all, it's going to show me all of the image frames that have an arch. So I want this one, and I'm going to simply click on the element and it automatically pops it onto my canvas. If it were to pop it on this canvas instead, which happens depending on where your mouse is, I can just hover over it with my mouse and drag it to where I want it to go. Now, if you look closely, you can see that there are some, as I move this image frame around, I'm getting these magenta guides that pop up. If you do not see that, they're very handy because Canva is letting me know kind of where things are centered, where they're getting too close to the margin, things like that. If you don't see it on your Canva profile as you're working, what you can do is you come up to the top left under File, and then you scroll down to View Settings, Show Rulers and Grid Guides, and then this will turn your guidelines on so that you have these come up for you. They're very, very handy to have. So now we have our image on the canvas. That's the first step. If I want to resize how this is, I can simply drag this out. But let's bring an image in. I'm going to bring in a very kind of silly one that I created. I didn't have a good photo to use. So we're going to bring this in, and I'm just going to click on the image and I'm going to drag it in. You can also, if you don't want to use a picture of yourself or your family and you don't have a Christmas photo to use, you can type in, go to Canva's photo tab and you can just type in, holidays, Christmas, snow, whatever, and you can scroll through and look for, pictures that would work for your image or what you have in mind. So none of these are really sticking out or appealing to me. I want it to be a little more personal, which is why I added an image, and I may not end up using this. But let's just say, for example, I like this image. I could simply, again, drag it in. If I don't like where Canva has placed it, I can double click on the image. And once I get these little white circles on the four corners, I can then begin to drag my image around and move it around, crop it, and figure out what the best placement is for this particular image. Now, as you can see, I have a different composition than what Canva automatically placed into the photo frame for me. So that is one way you can do that. You just want to be mindful if you're on a free account, you want to be mindful that you're not using pro images. Otherwise, when you go to download and export your design, it will ask you to either pay for the image or upgrade your membership to a pro account. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to bring this image in because this is the one that we're working from. And now that I have this image, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to find a background, a light background that kind of works with this image. So what I could do is I can just click on this little color box that says background color. And if you have your brand kit set up as a pro user, you can use your brand colors that you have. If you are on a free account, you don't have a lot of options with the brand kit, but you can add in 3 colors. So I highly recommend adding in at least your 3 primary colors. So what I want to do though, sometimes when I'm working with an image, what I will do is I want it to all kind of be cohesive with the image and work really well. So I'm going to pull a color from the image to use as my background color. So to do that, I just simply click on the color, this color box. I'm going to pick a color from the design, and now I can hover over one of the lighter parts of my image. And as you can see, it made it almost like, it looks like a little bit of a light green. If I don't like that, I can either use my picker tool again and I can find a new spot in the image. And if I don't like that color, then I can simply come back to my color, tool here, this color box, and I'm holding down my mouse and I'm just going to drag it to where I kind of like it. So I like it to be a little bit lighter. We're going to leave it there for now. If I don't like this, I can always come back and change the color, darken it, lighten it up, or completely change it altogether. So for now, we're going to leave it where it is. So now I have my background in place. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to look for a visual element to make this a little more Christmassy and to just make it a little more interesting. So again, I come back to my Elements tab in the left-hand menu. Because I was looking for an arch frame previously, all of my frames are still there. So what I want to do is I can either do a new search, or I can simply clear the search by clicking the little X, and it's going to bring me back to my main Elements menu with all of the various elements in here. So what I'm going to do is I can either click on graphics, but I tend to just do my search right from the search bar, and I'm going to type in Christmas garland is the keyword that I use to find the one that I have in this image. So I want graphics. It's given me some various categories: graphics, photos, videos, frames. I'm going to go into graphics to see what is available. So what you would do then is you would just kind of scroll through and look for the various graphics that are available within Canva. Some are free, some are, as you can see, the one that I used is a pro element indicated by this little crown. So when I click on that, it's going to drop the element into Canva. So now what I can do is I can drag it to where I want it to go and just kind of place it. And what happened there is I'm going to Command Z to get out of that. As I was dragging things around, the image clicked itself inside the other image frame that I had. So I'm just holding my mouse down to simply get off of that so that it doesn't clip in. I'm just going to find a nice placement. My guides are telling me that this is all aligned center. If I want, I may want to bring this up just a little bit. And if for some reason it clips back into the design, you can either keep your finger down on your mouse and drag it back out, or you can just simply Command Z or Control Z on Windows to just undo. You also can undo your steps up here using this little arrow. So now that we have our element in here, as you can see, I'm going to show you what I have created. This element is much more, it's not as saturated as this element. It's the same element, not as saturated. Now, I will say I do not always love the elements, the visual elements that Canva has. Sometimes they're great and I use them a lot, but sometimes they're just not my style or aesthetic. You do have the option of purchasing elements, say from Creative Market or Design Cuts, and then just importing the PNG file, or I should say upload the PNG file and using any purchased elements that you have. Or if you're an artist and you can draw, maybe you've designed something yourself on your iPad. As long as you have the PNG file where you can save it and bring it in as like a cutout, then you can upload your own elements and use those, which are always a nice touch. But for most of us, we're just using the elements that we have within Canva. If you are a free user and you don't want to be shown any of the pro elements because you won't be able to save this this graphic without paying for those elements, what you can do is you can come up to your filter option and you can scroll down to free. And now what it'll do is it's only going to show you the free elements within Canva for you to use in your design. So that is an option to consider as well when you're designing. If you find something that you really love and it's a pro, you won't be able to save it unless you pay for it. So now that we have this element in our design, I just want to show you again, it's the same element. It's the same one that I brought in, but it looks nothing like the one that was in the other design. So I'll bring this back up. Here's a little hack. If you ever see elements within Canva and they look just a little cheesy or the color is not totally right, you do have some limited styling options, or I guess editing options for visual elements. And this works the same with images as well. If I click on this element, as you see, I get a toolbar that pops up. Anytime I click on a new element, I'm going to get a different toolbar. In this case, I have basically two images. I have an image here and I have an image here. So I'm essentially getting the same toolbar. If I have text in my design and I click on text, I'm going to get a completely new toolbar pop up to give me all of my text editing options. So depending on what you're working on, I've had clients say, I can't find where my text is. I don't know where the buttons are. I can't find the right tools. It's probably probably because you're working within the design, but you're not clicked on the element, or you're clicked on a different element. So if I'm just sitting here and I'm looking at my design and I'm trying to figure out how to add text, I don't see anything. I'm trying to figure out how to change my text. I don't see anything until I physically click on that element. Then I get my toolbar pop up. So that's one thing. It's not just available to you until you click the element. So now that we're in here and I look at this garland, I want to make it a little less saturated. So what I can do, a little hack, is I come up to edit photo, and then I have some options. I can use some of these effects that Canva gives me, or I can adjust the color manually. What I did in this case for just simplicity is I clicked on filters, see all, and then when I come down, I have all of these different filter options. I chose the Scandi filter, and when I did, it just automatically just desaturated it. The berries aren't so bright. The green is a little more in alignment with the color palette that I use for my brand and my business. So we're just going to roll with that. If I wanted to, I could manually make the adjustments by coming in, clicking on adjust. I could play with the saturation, make it more saturated, desaturate it. I can even play with the color by coming in, clicking on those greens, and then I can adjust the hue and the saturation of just the greens on that element. So because the Scandi already worked so well with the image and everything that I was going for, I didn't really need to make any other adjustments. So I'm typically good with just the filter. So the other thing that I might want to do is I notice that this image is quite a bit bigger than this one. So I can click on this image, and to make it bigger, I can simply drag out my four corners and I can resize it to what I want. If I don't like where the placement of this image is, like me, the image of me in the photo, I can double click, and then I'm going to get these four corners, and then I can drag out and kind of like use this as a cropping tool to replace my photo in there. So we'll just leave it as is for now, and I'm going to bring this up a little so that it is covering up a bit more of the image. So what happens is when I bring it up too far, it's kind of clipping in, and if that happens, what I can do is I can use the arrow keys on my keyboard, and I can manually adjust it with the arrow keys. So I'm going to bring it up to about here. So now we have our image, we have our visual element, the garland. The next thing that we want to do is we want to add in some text. Now, this is not just your regular text. This is curved text. So you're going to be seeing some of the basic text editing options, and I'll show you some more of the advanced features as well. So to bring some text into your design, you have a few options. I'll show you two for this design. If you click on the text menu in the left-hand toolbar, you're going to have some text options. I can simply click on the text and it'll bring it right in for me. Because I'm a pro user and I have my brand kit set up, these are already set up with my brand fonts. If you're on a free account, you won't be able to change these. They will just be Canva's default font, which is still okay. You can click it and bring it into your design. And then we have a number of styling options in our text editing toolbar at the very top. So we're going to go ahead and delete that, because my favorite way to bring in text is to simply use shortcuts. So if you were to click on your canvas and click a T on your toolbar, it's going to bring in some text. Now, because I was working in this design and I have Happy Holidays in here already, it's going to bring in the same styling that I used on the last piece of text that I was working on, which can sometimes be okay, and sometimes it's annoying if you if you have to make a lot of adjustments. So to kind of just make this, I'm just going to do, actually, you know what I'll do is I will bring in another piece of text for us to work from here. Okay, so now that I've brought this text in, it's kind of back to, I don't have to do as much editing with it, because what I want to do is I want to create this font, this text curved around the arch of the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the text, and when I do that, it's going to bring up all of my styling options that are available under the text editor. So the first thing that you can do is, if it's not already set up to be on your brand font that you use, you can change the font by clicking on the font name, and then you can either do a search for the font that you use. I know what my brand fonts are, so I can search them, and they also already exist within Canva. If I don't have any brand fonts, or I'm not really sure, what I can do is I can come in, I can either simply just scroll through all of the different fonts that Canva has, or I can type in a font if I know its name, or the other option is I can go through the headings that Canva has set in place. And if I know that I want to use a serif font for my header, my heading that I'm using, then what I can do is I can click on the serif fonts, and I'm just going to see a drop down of all of the serif fonts that are included with Canva. Again, just bear in mind that the ones with the crown indicate that it's a pro font. You won't be able to use these in your designs without paying. So if you're on a free account, there are hundreds of free fonts within Canva that are really beautiful. The other nice thing about being on a pro account is if you are using, let's say you have a Squarespace website and you want to have your fonts match your Squarespace website, you cannot upload any fonts on the free version. You can on a pro version, you can upload fonts that you purchase and download from the web. Unfortunately, in Canva, you cannot do that if you're on a free account. My philosophy around that is if you can't upload your fonts and your fonts that you're using on your website are not in Canva, then just find something that's similar and that will be good enough. My philosophy with most things that I design and do in my business is good enough is good enough. So because I know what my font is, I'm going to simply just type it in. And what it's done is it's changed the font for me. The next thing I might want to do is, because that's a bit small, is I can now change the font size. So I can either use the plus and arrow keys to, increase and decrease the size of the text. I can click on the font size itself and I can scroll to find the size of the font that I want, or I can even click on it and type in the font size that I want. Or the other option is once I'm clicked on the text element and I get these little white circles, I can then begin to drag and pull things out and just eyeball the size that I might need. So now that I have my text in here, I can just kind of take a look and see what other styling options I need. The next thing that I'd want to do is change the text color. So I'm going to click on the text color box. Again, if I have my font, my brand color set up, I can use one of my brand colors. Or the other option that I can do, that I often do, is I will use the dropper tool, and I'm going to find a color from the image that I can use. That's a little bit dark for what I want, so I'm going to find something a little bit lighter and see what is in here. So we'll just leave it there for now. I may change this. In this version, I had almost a little bit more of a gold kind of color, a little bit more goldy. So maybe we'll actually kind of find that. I'll find something that's a little bit warmer there. And I could, if I don't love the color that I chose, I can continue to use the dropper tool, or I can simply click on this color area over here, and I can begin to just drag things around with my mouse and find a color that I like. So I'm going to leave it there for now. And then if I want, I can bold text, I could italicize, or I can even just like italicize, one word out of the entire body of text. The other thing that I can do is I can underline, I can put a strike through. I can also uppercase, which I've done in the example. So we'll make this uppercase. I can also change the alignment. You're not going to see much because it's stretched out there. But if I bring out the size of my text frame, as you can see, what's going to happen here is I've got it left aligned. If I change that alignment to center, it'll put it in the center of the text frame. The text frame is really handy if you don't want text to go beyond a certain point. Then you can drag these, you don't want things to certainly be pressed right up to the edge of your design. You want to have some margin there and some space so that things don't look too cramped and too overwhelming. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to drag this out a little bit, and I'm going to change the text, which I forgot to do, and I'm going to say happy holidays. So that would be the first thing you would do, is you would type in the text that you want, which I forgot to do. You can also add a bullet or number it if it was like a body of text you needed. The other styling that I would often do is I would click on my spacing tool, and I have the option to add letter spacing and line spacing. Letter spacing is the amount of space between your letters. Line spacing is the amount of space between your lines. So depending on what style you're into, you can either decrease or even bring the letter spacing right down and have your letters sit a lot closer together, which is the trend right now. A lot of people have their letter spacing really, really tight. So it's really just a preference. It's very subjective. It really just depends on, the mood, I guess, of your brand and the design that you're creating and what you like. So I tend to still like a little bit of letter spacing because I like things to breathe. I like it to feel very open. So we'll just add in that amount of letter spacing. Now, I do have some other options that get into effects and animate, which would be a little more advanced. So I'm going to show you those on how I was able to create this curved. But for most of the time, most of the projects you're going to be working on, you're going to be using the tools. The main tools would be here, and then in effects and animate, you're getting into more of the advanced sort of tools. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on that text. And now if I bring this down and I turn it to the side, I get this little rotate bar button. I can just click on this using my mouse and I can rotate it. And you can see it tells me at what degree I am rotating this. So I'm going to start there at 45 degrees to see how this looks when I add a curve. So to add in the curve effect, I click on effects. And I get a number of different options. I can add a shadow if I want. I don't often use any of these, but occasionally I use the background and I use the curve, and sometimes I may use shadow if I want things to pop out a little bit. Hollow is a fun one too, depending on what you're doing, but most of the things that I create don't require anything fancy, so I'm not using many effects. But we do want to add the curve here to put it around that arch. So I'm just going to click on the curve tool, and now it's going to curve that. It's given me a 75% curvature, so I'm going to decrease that because it's too much, and I'm literally just eyeballing this to kind of see where this suits my design. I'm just clicking on it. I'm following the guides to see where I like this, and when I have a look, I could see that I want this to be a tiny little bit more curved. So I'm going to click back on my text tool. I'm going to go back into effects. I'm going to click on curve, and I'm going to change that again and bring that in just ever so slightly. Now what I want to do is I can see that there's a bigger distance here between here. So I'm going to try to tighten that up a little bit. I'm going to click on the text. I'm going to use my rotate tool, and I'm going to manually rotate this until I kind of eyeball it and see where I think it looks pretty even. And then what I want to do is if I want to move things around, I can drag with my mouse. And what that's going to happen is Canva's going to snap things into place where it thinks it needs to go. But sometimes the movements can be too big. So if I need just a very subtle movement, I can highlight this text, and then I can use the arrow keys up and down, left and right to kind of find the right placement for what it is that I'm creating. So again, I'm going to use this rotate key just ever so slightly to kind of see if I can eyeball this and make this look just a little bit more even. I want to give it some space between the text and the image. So I'm just going to zoom out here. If I get too close and I want to see how things look in comparison, I can simply zoom out, and now I can kind of see. I mean, as I said, it's not going to be an identical replication of the other holiday card. I just want to be able to show you some of the tools. But if I wanted to tweak this a little further, I could play with letter spacing. I could play with all kinds of things to kind of get it a little bit more exact to the original. But for time's sake, we're just going to move on. The next thing that I want to do is we're going to add in an animation to this Happy Holidays. So if I click on animate, again, I'm going to get a ton of different options. You can hover over them and it's going to show you the effect on how that looks within Canva. I love the typewriter tool. And what I like to do is I usually like to slow it right down. Make sure that goes in. Yeah. So I'm going to bring that right down so it's not too fast. And then I can change this on enter or to have it just on the exit. I usually just keep it as both. I don't get super fancy, and like that's usually good enough for me. Now what's going to happen is when I go to export this Christmas card, I'm going to go to share and I'm going to click down on download. And then what I want to do is instead of saving it as a video file, which Canva will automatically set it as, I'm going to change that to save it as a GIF or a GIF file. And what'll happen when I save it that way is that it will automatically play the animation when I insert it into my newsletter or on social media. The animation will just play on a loop versus someone having to click the play button to watch the animation take effect. So that's what I would definitely recommend. So the last thing we want to do to add in our name is, again, it's the same idea. I can just come over to my text toolbar. I can add in a piece of text, and then I can simply style it by changing it to what I want. I want it to use a script font to be able to show you. So it would be the same steps where I come up and I look for my font, and I can either click on handwriting because I know I want a script font to see what script font options are in Canva. I could also do a search and say script, or I could say handwriting, and it's going to pop up. In my case, what I did was I uploaded a specific font that I downloaded from the web that I purchased, and I just changed the font style. But just to show you, I left this as is for a reason. When I've already created something, I can simply click on an element that I've already styled and set up. This works for text, images, and for visual elements. I can click on the element, in this case the text element. I can click on my copy style tool, and then I can click on the element that I want to change it to, and when I do that, it changes the style for me. Now what I can do is I have it already styled, and that just saved me, several extra clicks. So I'm just going to bring this up a little closer and make sure that's all aligned. Now when I look at it, everything looks, good enough for what I'm creating. If I want to make sure that everything sits nice and aligned really well on the page, I can simply hover over all of my elements. I can move them now. They're all kind of grouped because I have them selected. But if I want to make sure they stay as one element so nothing moves from anything else where it gets separated and then I have to find its placement again, I can click on group. And now as you can see, it's converted all of this into one element. So if I want to resize it, it's going to resize it as the element. It won't change the sizing of any of the individual elements now that it's grouped. So I can size this to what I want, and I'm going to just use my guides here to find a good placement. So the other thing that I will often do is once I get everything set up is sometimes I will go into grid view, and then I can kind of compare it this way as well. And I can kind of see how things look. Of course, it's a little bit smaller. I can use my zoom tool to kind of just check to make sure that it's everything that I like. And I think in comparison, it looks fairly similar to what we had created. So if I want, I can click the play button and it's going to show me how that animation looks. So I think I'm pretty happy with that. I hope that this tutorial was helpful for you. I hope that you learned some new tips and tricks on how to use some of the different elements that are within Canva. If you have any questions, or you're still not sure about something, or you just want to leave your feedback, feel free to comment below on this video or on this post, and I will read your messages and get back to you. Wishing you all a happy holiday and a happy new year.